Hello and welcome. I'm your host, William Liu. This is the Reaction Podcast presented by Betway. For all your sports betting activities, hit the QR code that you see on the screen here live on the stream, or you can hit the links in the description to the podcast. Raptors win tonight 119-116 in the rematch against the Miami Heat. Lots and lots of good stuff to get to. RJ Barrett going for 37 points. Fun fact, RJ Barrett is now averaging over 30 a game at home this season. Through 7 games, he's averaging over 30 a game this season. It's kind of incredible seeing what RJ has done, especially at home, or obviously, in the GTA where he grew up. Some pretty good execution down the stretch. I mean, you could certainly quibble with a couple of things here or there, but I mean, Miami was hitting some dagger threes, and Tyler Herro was just going, ridiculous for a while. But, enough sort of playmaking from the likes of Scottie Barnes, from the likes of RJ Barrett to get the job done at the end. And, some pretty impressive things. Continuing to see those from Jakob Poeltl, the Raptors rookie, who continues to start in Grady Dick's absence. Grady did get some warm-ups in before the game. As your number one warm-up report watcher, I can report that, Grady is actually getting some warm-ups. So I don't think he's too far off, although we'll see sort of, the updates as they come. In the meantime, though, Jakob Poeltl continues to get a chance to get playing time with the starting lineup, and I thought he looked really good today. So lots of good things to get to here on the Reaction Podcast. As always, we will be taking questions in the second half of the program. So please leave those into the live chat. Our producer, Jerome Chang, will be in there looking for your questions. Producer Alex Wong, hopefully you hit that flush that you've been looking for, buddy, and say hi to Ennis for me, who I'm sure is on tilt by now. So Raptors win the game tonight here in really exciting fashion. We got to start with RJ Barrett, who obviously just continues to showcase really, really high highs this season. Yes, there have been moments where it's a little bit down. Yes, there have been moments where, how are him and Scotty going to sort of, coexist together. I think he's had like really, really good highs though. And I think that that shouldn't be overlooked. The fact that he goes for 37 tonight on 15 of 20 shooting. He knocks down 3 threes, which is just the right amount for RJ. 3 of 4 from 3, all catch and shoots, all within rhythm, just very confidently taken from RJ. Only 4 of 4 from the foul line, which is only surprising because of the fact that he drove a ton. And but still, he can, just like the first game against Miami, which he did pretty good in that one too. I believe I gave him the 3rd star. But Miami throws a lot of contact in the lane, and they're really, really aggressive on the perimeter. And RJ's a guy who is able to absorb all of that, play off of it. One play I thought that was really indicative of this was 4th quarter. The Raptors were late shot clock scenario, trying to beat Miami's zone. They, rotate the ball over to RJ, who made a cut. Jimmy Butler met him, bumped him, and RJ immediately hit a spin move to get around Jimmy Butler and finish at the basket. I mean, RJ was awesome tonight, especially considering the fact that he was guarded by Jimmy for a lot of this, including in the 4th quarter where Raptors go on a bit of a cold streak, and we've seen this happen before with this team a lot this season. They held a lead going into the 4th quarter, but are they going to be able to close it out? The other team starting to play fearless. Terry Rozier getting fouled for threes. Herro getting fouled for threes. Herro making fading threes. What are they going to do? They give the ball to RJ. He drives it strong at Jimmy Butler and then comes to a jump stop, creates a bit of that separation, and then just goes up for a short finger roll to finish over the top of an elite defender. That's great. And then the next play down, he doesn't force it too much, drives it, gets into the lane, sees a double team, swings it out to Scotty, and Scotty confidently knocks down a wing 3. So, I mean, I just thought tonight RJ was on a mission from start to finish. He was really, really good. Defensively, me and Samson Folk had a long discussion about this after the first game against Miami. This was Friday's Reaction Podcast. And we talked about sort of the different factors. I mean, more than anything else, I thought today he was just like decent. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't, like too leaky. He wasn't like falling asleep off the ball. He wasn't dying on screens as much. Like, I think a lot of this is within his control, but also at the same time, it's like, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like, I don't really care about a man's defense if he goes 15 of 20 for 37 points. So big credit to RJ Barrett, who continues to show that number one, first and foremost, he is this team's best driver without a doubt. I mean, it should not be taken for granted how often he gets to the paint, whether it's in transition where he's just absolutely lethal, or it's in a half court setting, especially when he could play off of other playmakers. But he just gets to the paint so many times a game. And again, he's averaging over 30 a game at home this season. And whatever it is in terms of like, I think he's averaging like 30 at home and like about 19 on the road. His percentage is a lot better on the at home too. It's just like whatever that focus is that comes from being at home, that momentum. RJ's talked about sort of like obviously the energy of having people cheer for you, whatever. But like, if he can just sort of translate that over, because like I think RJ gets dismissed just a little bit because like this is clearly Scotty's franchise. And then IQ was when the time the trade happened with OG last year around this time. The big billing was IQ. You get IQ. That's your point guard of the future. You're going to re-sign him, hopefully, which obviously Raptors did. And then him and Scotty are going to, make this big pairing. And then RJ was sort of like, oh yeah, RJ's nice too, but like, he was kind of there almost as sort of just the other piece in that trade. And I think especially because he played in New York and there's such a big focus in New York about like, there's just first off, there's just a huge fan base. There's a huge media market there. And especially when RJ was trying to like come up as a young player, third overall pick, obviously the Knicks that year were really hoping for 1 or 2 so they could take Zion first and foremost, or even Ja. They got 3, they take RJ. There's been so much focus on like what RJ can't do. And it's like, that's probably why he got traded. It was like, you know what? Like we need somebody who can defend at the highest levels. We need someone who can shoot the highest levels. And like, that's why they made a trade for OG. Totally different style of player, but like, probably one that's more ready to sort of help as sort of like a second or probably a third or fourth piece really in a championship puzzle, which the Knicks are hoping to build right now. But with RJ, it's like everyone focuses so much on what he can't do, but like what he can do is really good. I mean, this guy just like lives in the paint. He's super aggressive. And when he's there, it's not like he doesn't play make either. I mean, today he had 5 assists, which could be a little bit higher, but at the same time, 15 to 20, I don't want you to pass. I want you to be the one finishing around the basket. And RJ just really, really found a great balance of that tonight. So huge credit to RJ Barrett. He's like absolutely the number one reason why the Raptors were in this game. Were ahead for the majority of this game. Raptors won the first quarter 34 to 24. RJ already had like, I think 11 or 13 in just the first quarter alone. And that focus sort of carried on. And I think more importantly, that focus carried on into the fourth quarter, because again, if you're going to look at sort of like, okay, you could do all this, but like, can you do, something else, right? The fourth quarters have been like, these moments where RJ's trying to take the game winning shot, or he's had a lot of decision making down the stretch. And like, there can be hit or misses, right? We even saw one possession today where he was trying to orchestrate it, got stuck, and then ended up trying to pass it to Scotty, but the shot clock was already over at that point, right? So like there are going to be sort of miscues, but at the same time, we saw the very confident take against Jimmy Butler finishing at the basket, which was really, really tough. We saw the nice pass to Scotty. Like I think there's enough good things there where, we saw a big rebound from him as well. Like those things in terms of just making the right plays down the stretch. I mean, the clutch moments are like basically you got like 10 possessions back and forth within like a 5-minute span. And if you are just like not making mistakes and you put your team in good positions and you don't compromise the floor balance, you know what I mean? Like all those things are really good. So I just thought RJ was awesome today. Scotty ends up with 23 points, 10 rebounds, 9 assists. I took a peek in the live chat before just going on. I think you can actually leave comments sort of before the stream actually goes live. And I already saw a couple comments that were like, oh, like, is Scotty aggressive enough? Is he not aggressive enough? Look, just because like RJ was clearly the guy tonight and Scotty was feeding him doesn't mean that Scotty wasn't aggressive enough, especially in crunch time. I thought more than anything else, at the start of the fourth quarter, when it was Scotty plus Jakob plus bench players, I would have loved to see him more aggressive in those moments, right? At that point, Tyler Herro wasn't on the floor. Jimmy Butler wasn't on the floor. And yeah, Miami had some pretty good defenders on, but I just didn't see enough initiative for Scottie to sort of like take it 2-3 dribbles hard into the lane, kind of the same way RJ does, and then bend the defense totally and then kick it out and start, swing, 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 whatever at that point, right? Like maybe for like a 3-minute stretch there, which was basically the first 3 minutes where Scottie was with that unit, I thought the aggression wasn't there. But overall, he played a really nice game. I thought defensively, first and foremost, he did a great job. He was obviously covering Jimmy Butler again. Jimmy goes 6 and 9 from the field. Honestly, like the fact that he only shot 9 times, some of that's on Jimmy. Jimmy does have these weird moments where he just like isn't as aggressive or kind of just like backs off. I don't know what it is particularly with Jimmy, but I don't think it's very helpful for Miami at all. I think it kind of throws their offense into a really, really strange loop. Um, but I thought Scottie did a great job guarding Jimmy Butler. I thought, you saw, lots of moments where Scottie was helping as well, rotating the aggression, the helping on the double teams. Like I just thought he was really good. Off the rebounds, he was pushing a lot in transition. That's the main reason why the Raptors won this game too. Is okay, yeah, Miami's going to throw some zone at you. Miami's got some, pretty good defenders in the half court. Bam, Jimmy, Tyler, I was going to say Tyler Herro. They were mostly trying to hunt Tyler Herro. I'm talking about Haywood Highsmith, guys like that were doing pretty well. But the main reason the Raptors beat the Heat tonight was just how much they got out in transition. And Scottie pushing that ball in transition, RJ pushing that ball in transition, the two of them finding each other in transition as well. A lot of good stuff there. And then, of course, like the playmaking when you need it, right? Like, it's the timely catch and shoot three from the top, 2 of 5 from 3 for Scottie. Also, I think a very healthy number for him. Right. We've seen games earlier in the road trip, I guess earlier this week, when he goes 2 of 12 from 3. It's like, okay, like that might be a few too many threes, no matter how much the defense is collapsing and trying to protect the paint. But 2 of 5 from 3, I think is like a really, really healthy number. And of course, the confidence to take the 3 at the end there and knock it down, which is absolutely huge in crunch time. The plays where Scottie's able to, duck in and spin and finish around the basket. There was a stretch in the second quarter where he took a strong to the basket twice and then had another one where I guess the Heat played it really well. Defensively had him stuck. He was around the free throw line area, hand in his face, guy in his jersey, and he somehow spins, turns it around. The guy's contest is right in his face. I don't know if he can even see the rim, and he still knocks down the turnaround jumper, like stuff like that. Obviously, I'm not trying to have him live on that diet. He's not going to be DeMar DeRozan. But, like, yeah, I mean, I thought Scottie played a really, really good game, really balanced game as well. The 9 assists, a lot of that in transition, a lot of that sort of picking apart Miami's zone. There was a stretch there where he were going zone in the second quarter, and there were 2 straight passes that I thought Scottie made that was just, like, absolutely brilliant. One of them, the Raptors overloaded one side of the floor. So if you divide the court into half, right, left side or right side, Raptors had like 5 guys, or sorry, they have 4 guys on the left side and only 1 guy on the right side. And they had Jameson in one corner. They had Mogbo at the top of the floor. They had Scottie in that sort of free throw line area. And then they had Chris Boucher right behind Scottie. And it was obviously not the intended overload in the sense that like the Raptors didn't want to put 4 guys on one end of the floor because that's not even ideal, even against the zone. But Scottie realized what was happening. He flashed the top there. He got the pass from Mogbo and, flipped a little bounce pass right behind him to Chris Boucher, who cut along that baseline for a dunk. That was really beautiful. And then the next play down, Raptors are in the zone. Scottie's at the top of the floor this time. There was, I think, Jonathan Mogbo on the wing, and once again, Jameson Battle in the corner. And the Heat were just a little bit cheating off, just a little bit too much off of Jameson, and Scottie threw like a one-handed bullet pass. And it was the speed of the pass, it was the accuracy of the pass directly into the shooting pocket for Jameson to get the space to catch, shoot, fire, and knock it down from 3, which we know he's automatic, especially when he gets space. Like stuff like that to pick apart Miami's zone was really brilliant from Scottie as well. So I thought, I mean, RJ has some really good passes too. There's one where he threw a skip pass off a pick and roll over the top of 2 defenders into the corner. That was really nice. I think that was for Ochai. But like, yeah, just in general, those 2 guys leading the charge was great. Once again, the Raptors found a lot of Jakob Poeltl. Some of that is obviously matchup dependent, right? Miami certainly were switching a lot, especially, the pick and rolls with Scottie. They're switching their centers out on Scottie. So like Bam will get onto Scottie. It's like, okay, I don't really necessarily want Scottie to go one-on-one against Bam from the perimeter. That's not necessarily the greatest shot. But if the Raptors swing the ball and then dump it back into the post to Jakob, when he could duck in against Tyler Herro, when he can duck in against, Haywood Highsmith, even Jimmy Butler, like even Kevin Love, who's obviously older at this point, but still like a very long time veteran big, right? Where it's like you typically don't see Jakob that aggressive. Um, yeah, I thought Jakob tonight did a really good job presenting himself, making himself available, and the Raptors going to him. Like him getting fouled and going to the foul line 8 times is a reflection of how aggressive Jakob was going to the basket, and also the fact that the Raptors actually did intentionally recognize that Jakob had advantages and swung it to him. I think that he just kept them really involved. Obviously, once again, Darko used Jakob to match up primarily with Bam Adebayo, match up those minutes. Bam obviously have the physicality and the size, but Jakob is actually bigger. And Jakob came up with some pretty big stops on Bam, man. There was one, especially in the fourth quarter, that stands out where Bam was trying to drive at Jakob off the dribble. Jakob cut him off. Then Bam tried to spin. Jakob cut him off. Then Bam's picked up his dribble. He's trying to pivot, head fake, and then step through, whatever, just trying to find some sort of space around to finish. And Jakob stayed with him the entire time, and it ended up being a shot clock violation. Like, that was really, really good stuff from Jakob. And of course, Jakob getting on the offensive glass, 4 offensive rebounds for him. That's just actually a pretty normal game, but a lot of putbacks for Jakob, and he had a really nice stretch. So, like, I think for the most part, the Raptors starters really, really carried, and those 3 were your main guys. Of course, you got a little bit of contribution. Some of that is just timeliness from certain guys, like Chris couldn't knock down the threes once again, which does feel like more of a backbreaker when you're playing against a team like Miami, who play a lot of zone. But he made up for it with a couple of transition finishes in that third quarter when the Raptors were able to establish a lead and push it, I think, to double digits in the end of the third quarter there. Chris is a big part of that, cutting out of the baseline, out of the corner towards the basket in a timely fashion when Scottie hit him with the pass. It's one of the ways to beat the zone, not just to sort of catch and shoot from the corners or just catch and shoot for 3, but also to make the timely cuts behind the zone. I thought Chris did a good job of that. Also, finished a lot in transition. Just in general, played with a lot of energy, had 2 blocks and a steal. Those are all pretty good things from Chris Boucher to contribute off the bench tonight. I thought Jonathan Mogbo, didn't have a big stat line, but I actually thought he did a really good job of distributing. Part of the reason he had 6 assists was because of the fact that Miami was in that zone. And one of the very underrated things with Mogbo is the fact that, as one of those small ball playmaker types, when he flashes to the middle of the zone and the ball is able to be inputted to him, you can trust him to sort of make the right decisions. When in those scenarios, when the Heat are blitzing, let's say RJ or Scotty out the pick and roll, and they slide the pass over the top to Mogbo when it's a 4-on-3 behind the ball, he makes a really good job in terms of just like deciphering which pass, where to go, and delivering that on time. Of course, he obviously had some experience as a point guard before he hit a growth spurt later on in his teens. So there's clearly a small vestige of that sort of point guard skill left in him. But I thought he did a great job in terms of just knowing where to be in the zone, right? Because at that point you had Scotty who could operate in the middle of that zone, or you had Mogbo in the middle of that zone. I thought both guys did a good job. And of course, Mogbo's playmaking, I think, is probably most evident when he's pushing it in transition. So even though he only had 2 shots and went 1 for 2 for 3 points, I guess he had an and one. It was the 7 rebounds and 6 assists. I thought he did a really good job for the second unit. Davion Mitchell might be one of the more underrated heroes of this game. I thought it was a pretty bad game from Jamal Shed. That 4 minutes he played was a -11. Some of that was because he miscommunicated with Scotty. He left Terry Rozier open for 3. Then he fouled. I think he fouled Terry Rozier for 3, and then he left Terry Rozier open for another 3 in the corner. For a guy who's going to come in and be a defensive specialist, you got to at least at minimum guard your man, right? So that's already 6 points that he's losing in 4 minutes to the opposing backup point guard. And then a couple of other plays. I mean, he did hit a driving layup, whatever, but in general, that stretch where he was leading the point for that group just wasn't strong, and Darko called timeout. He gave the majority of the minutes to Davion Mitchell, who played 28 as the backup point guard here. And of course, the Raptors don't even have a starting point guard. If it is, it's probably Scotty, but they're not starting any of their point guards. But Davion actually earned a great chance to sort of close here, and he did the right things. Number one, when it was that aforementioned stretch, when it was 3 minutes to start the fourth quarter, and it was the Raptors holding the momentum with a double-digit lead, are they going to able to sort of blow it open, or are they going to choke it out and all of a sudden Miami gets the momentum back? In that stretch, I thought Scotty, like I mentioned, just wasn't impacting the paint. I don't think he even got 2 feet in the paint once in that 3 minute stretch. But Davion actually was there to make a couple of big plays, including one where Scottie kind of just like dumped it to Davion. No advantage, was just kind of like, here, you do something with it. Davion was able to slash from the top of the floor, drive it all the way in, and finish. A couple of brave finishes for Davion today. And then another play where when RJ was subbed in for Scottie, RJ drove it into the middle of the lane, saw a double team, and then kicked it out to Davion, and Davion sort of set his feet and got the three up and knocked it down. Those 5 points out of the 7 that he scored in that stretch there in the fourth quarter were really, really big. And then, of course, he made a couple of defensive plays as well. Nice little pressure on the sideline. Unfortunately, he stepped out of bounds, but the Raptors were pressuring just a lot on Miami's sideline inbound. They barely got it in, and they had to do one of those like really short inbounds. So they're right pressed up against the line, and there's a crowd, and Davion, Davion did a good job of just pressuring the ball there. Unfortunately, he had 1 foot out of bounds when he was sort of going for the jump ball. So, or for the tie up. So that's out of bounds. But like 2 possessions later, there's a play where Miami actually got the ball into, I think Duncan Robinson was cutting to the basket, caught it, was about to go up, but then Davion out of nowhere helped out and was able to swipe the ball and actually get the steal. So little moments like that for Davion that I thought were pretty important. The other thing too is just like, again, this is me, the warm-up sicko, once again, reporting in that I was watching Davion's warm-up, and I feel like it takes him like a long time to load up the three. Like, he's not necessarily an accurate three-point shooter, in the sense that like there's not a consistency to it, or there's a bad arc, or weird shape or whatever to the jumper, right? Like watching him sort of do the Raptors like Noah analytics scoreboard, whatever, where they track the jumpers in the practice gym, like he actually like scores pretty well on those and he looks normal. But I think watching it today, I realized it kind of takes him a long time to get the three off. Not in the sense that like he's not, I guess, I don't know, something like Horace Grant trying to like, throw the ball at the basket after a long time, or even Chris Boucher with the trebuchet. Like, I feel like he kind of dips the ball really low and then has to come all the way up. Like, it feels like he has to generate a lot of power just to even get the shot up that distance. And I think you couple that with the fact that he's shorter, with the fact that his range is pretty much like toes on the line level threes, it does really limit how many chances he can do to catch and shoot. Like, he's definitely not catching shooting from like 28, 30, that range. He's rarely doing that. But I don't know what it is, but like, can they somehow speed it up a little bit, make it a little bit more compact? I'm not asking for no dip three or anything, but like, it does feel like it takes quite a while for him to get that three off. Ultimately, he got the one that was important in the fourth quarter, but like, I think this kind of like if he's able to extend the range and actually not only improve the accuracy, which is not particularly good either for his career, but like, this is a make or break skill, because his defense really does play. His defense really does play. His playmaking overall, probably not that great. He's probably more of an off guard. But it's okay, because a lot of teams now have these like other, primary playmakers. You look at the Raptors with Scottie and RJ, those guys can take on a bigger playmaking role, and that's okay. But, I think one of the key parts of being the off guard is you got to then be able to catch and shoot. You know what I mean? And but ultimately I thought Davion actually contributed quite a bit to the Raptors down the stretch. One last thing that I wanted to touch on was Jakob Poeltl's game before we go to the break and take some of your questions. But again, a reminder to leave your questions in the chat. Producer Jerome Chang will be looking for those, and we'll be answering a lot of those after the break. And also, if you're watching, hit like on the stream. I've already explained this many times, but just hit like on the stream, especially if you're watching, especially if you're enjoying it right now. What that does is it tells YouTube that there's a big audience here, and it allows YouTube to sort of push it after the game's over. For people who watch it the morning after, it is a Sunday night after all. People are probably watching football. They probably switched the channel from Raptors to football afterwards, whatever. Just hit the like on the stream, because we are sort of making a big effort to go live after every game. And, people always want to hear good things after a win, no matter what. Like, we could talk ethical tank all we want, but I'm telling you, viewership definitely improves after wins. So just hit the like on the stream, and I'll only beg you one more time, actually, towards the second half of the show. So Jakob Poeltl, who continues to start for the Toronto Raptors here. Jacoby in 17 minutes goes for 12 points, 5 of 10 shooting, 2 of 4 from 3. A couple of things that I really liked. Number one, I liked, once again, his aggressiveness on defense. He's not overplaying. I feel like Shed overplays a lot. Like, I think one of the reasons why, going back to preseason, I really loved Jamal was like, I love the fact that he forced so many turnovers. And, you heard me gush about it over and over again. It was like an absurd amount of turnovers forced over a stretch there. But coming into the season, I think that effect hasn't necessarily been, well, it's not there in the same way. So, like, okay, then there's like moments of overplaying, whatever. He gets beat or he commits some fouls, whatever, right? Jacoby, I think, does strikes a good balance in terms of like he gets tied up on you. Yes, he'll press up on the ball to sort of, pressure full court. He's not, turning the defender nearly as many times, but like he's close, like he's closing out well. He's not like leaving guys too open. He's like flying around these screens, and he is skinny enough and strong enough to sort of just like trail his guy decently around these screens. And then when it's sort of one-on-one scenarios, he's quick. He uses his length well. These guards for Miami, like, they're tricky, right? Tyler Herro can obviously, I mean, this guy's shooting like crazy right now this season. I think he's like third in the league in threes. Herro can certainly, get it off pick and roll or even just like catching and shooting or whatever. And then also, Terry Rozier is a pretty tough matchup as well in terms of his ability to sort of like get downhill and shoot off the dribble and all that kind of stuff. I thought like Jacoby both games did a really good job of staying in front, sliding his feet. Yes, he committed some fouls. I thought, Jimmy tricked him for a couple of those in the third quarter, whatever. And we didn't see much of him in crunch time because, like, still, honestly, I wouldn't have even minded if Darko went to him. Although I will say that Davion played really well to start the fourth quarter. So I totally understand him riding it out with Davion for the bulk of the fourth. But like Jacoby played a really good game on the defensive end. On the offensive end, there's some maturity there. I mean, like, obviously the Raptors drafted him 19th coming out of Baylor. His freshman year, I mean, he was like their main scorer, like their number one option. Now, of course, it wasn't like number one option. He was averaging 25 or anything. Like, I think that eventually other sort of options presented themselves too for that team. But like Baylor was Jacoby was number one item on their scouting reports, especially after like he had a really hot start to the collegiate season last year. I remember talking to his coach about this, and Jacoby shows you that maturity on the offensive end. There's a couple of things that I mean. Yes, you can get to a couple catch and shoot threes, which he knocked those down, which is good. But I'm more interested in the 3-2s that he made out of the 5 that he made. One of them, after he made 2 threes, guys are closing out hard on him on the perimeter. He puts it on the floor and calmly, gets himself an and one attacking a closeout because he knows sort of like when to rush and when not to go so fast, and sort of the exact sort of like understanding of, okay, I pump fake my man off the, driving off the 3. I'm going to get into the lane. There's going to be some moment where between when the help gets to me and my original man is able to come back to me. That's going to be the time that he has to sort of decide what type of shot he's going to get to, what type of read he's going to make, and if guys sell out to him, obviously what type of pass to make, right? He did a really great job of that and took the contact and finish. There was another play where he's coming off the pick and roll, and it's a late shot clock scenario, so he's got to create something. Comes out the pick and roll. I think Terry Rozier actually went under on the screen, and so he realized this and got into like a mid-range area, not like just settling for a longer 3 or anything like that. Took a couple dribbles, got into the mid-range area, saw that Rozier again had went under and his feet were a little bit flatter, and he just rose up mid-range for the jumper. Very smooth, very calm, very good read, knocked it down, no problem. And another play in the fourth quarter, or not the third quarter, where he got the ball coming off a screen, gets into the lane. This time the defender trails over the top of him, so he understands how to then trap that defender behind him. Very, very mature, snaking the pick and roll, keeping the defender behind him, waiting to again, like attacking that gap between, the 3 and also the free throw line area. Taking 1 or 2 dribbles to get closer to the basket, seeing that the big is in drop and the defender's behind him, that he's trapped his own man, and then he goes up for the short little push jumper from like that free throw line area. Those are all like very mature things. Like snaking a pick and roll for a rookie is like, especially for a guy who's not a point guard too, was really impressive. He's got enough size, he's got a wingspan, he rebounds well, and he defends diligently. Like, I could totally see why, they were so happy to get him at this sort of selection. And of course, like, it's still just 12 points. He ends up being a minus 12, although I don't think that's really on him. Commits 4 personal fouls in 17 minutes, whatever. But like, there weren't really that many mistakes from Jakobi. I thought he played a really, really good game. And the 3 games here that he's been able to start, he's shown me something, man. I think that I'm really intrigued to see more of it. There's a bit of a playmaking creation for himself. I think for the 3-point shooting, it's probably still going to be a little bit erratic, whether he's adjusting to the distance of it or whatever. But for the third time today, the warm-up report man has come to deliver the news that, like, I did watch Jakobi shoot a ton of catch and shoot threes on the wing and out of the corners. Out of the corners, he seemed pretty decent. On the wings, he was probably like a little bit more erratic. You know what I mean? And honestly, it's nothing was dissimilar to like Grady last year. Grady last year was like, I remember coming to some of those and I was like, wait, hold on. Him and Precious are kind of shooting like a decent, like a close enough where it's like, unless I'm like exactly tracking, like, okay, he went like 45 for 80 or something, you know what I mean? And sort of comparing the exact percentages, like eye test wise, it was like looking like similar. Like it was a little bit more erratic. This year, it's very much more automatic. Like it's the consistency, whether that's the adjustment to the distance, whether that's sort of like just the form or whatever it is. Obviously Grady right now is like knocked down, and I'm very excited to see him coming back to the lineup. But like with Jakobi, it is still more inconsistent on the wing. So like I would. It's probably going to continue to be where the 3-point percentages are still a little bit lower as compared to sort of what you would want to see from a 3-point specialist. But he's not necessarily just a 3-point specialist. Like there's a couple of things there that, like, Grady, for as excited that we are to see him sort of take the next step here, and like hopefully he's able to come back from injury soon. Like I mentioned, he did warm up before the game and go through some drills. But like still, like I feel like with Jakobi, like snaking a pick and roll, stuff like that, like that's just not something you would, typically see. So, I was just continue to be really impressed by Jakobi, and it's a great chance to get him into the starting lineup. I think it really settles him into, like, if he's going to be a guy that's going to play against closeouts, it's going to be a lot easier to play against closeouts in the starting lineup when you have Scotty and Jakob and RJ to play off of. So overall, just a really nice performance. Raptors made enough plays down the stretch to come through with the win in crunch time. I've talked a lot about this game. It's time to sort of hear your questions. So we're going to take a quick break, hear from one of our newest sponsors of Hello and Welcome, the podcast. And when we come back, we will take those questions.
Hey, Will, the holidays are coming up, man. What you got planned?
Probably going to do some shopping. Great time to get some gifts for your loved ones, and that's what we're doing here today. What are you going to do, Alex?
Yeah, I'm a real grown adult, so I've got a lot of responsibilities to worry about, including taking care as a homeowner of this podcast. Have to think about my mortgage all the time. So for people that have a mortgage up for renewal, lock in the best rates and products with Dominion Lending Centers. Visit www.dominionlending.ca.
Love that commercial, man. Honestly, first and foremost, salute to Dominion Lending. But second of all, nothing is more convincing than Alex Wong in a hoodie, tilted back like 250 degrees in that chair, showing us the bottoms of his worn out sneakers, being like, I'm an adult. I got a mortgage. Salute to Alex. We will be shooting a new ad tomorrow, actually, when we do another episode for, I think, Tuesday's game. But anyway, it's time now to hear your questions, and it is time now for the Tangerine Fan Inbox. Tangerine is the official bank of the Toronto Raptors, foundational partner of WNBA Canada and the NBA Canada. And of course, they're not just fans of basketball, they're fans of basketball. They're fans of fans who have their own nickname for each guy in the starting five, or fans who stand 5 inches from the TV, or fans who can recreate every player's layup package while sitting on the couch. If you're hearing this, there's no doubting your commitment. Fans like you are at the heart of what makes this game great. So this year, for the Raptors' 30th season, Tangerine is turning the spotlight from the court to the stands, celebrating the way Raptor fans support their team, because this is how we win. To learn more, visit tangerine.ca/basketball. Okay, what's our first question, producer Jerome? There we go. Okay, nameless. When is Scotty going to pass Kalo in triple doubles, this season or next? I love this question. So I think the Raptors franchise record in terms of career triple doubles is Kyle Lowry at 16. Scotty right now is at 6, which I think puts him tied for second. Maybe him and Pascal are tied for second. He's already got like 1 or 2 already this season. So I mean, especially based on the fact that, like, this wasn't even a game where it felt like Scotty had the ball all the time. It wasn't like he, like, it dominated the ball and just like controlled the whole entire game. Obviously, a lot of that was RJ today. He still was only 1 assist shy of a triple-double tonight. So I think you bring back a couple of shooters, Grady, IQ back in the starting lineup. I think, yeah, triple-doubles for Scotty, you just won't be a problem. If it's not going to be this year, it'll be next year. But I honestly think that there's a decent chance, especially with All-Star coming up as well. Players know sort of when to sort of kick it into gear too. And yeah, I mean, it's inevitable that Scotty will be the new franchise leader in triple doubles, if not this season, but next season at the latest. Next question. Shanda. Shouts to Shanda in Newfoundland. Of course, shouts to Shanda. Longtime listener of the program. Ardent question sender to the banter pod as well. So shouts to Cornerbrook. Question: why do you think RJ is so much better at home? Is it osmos? First off, Osmos, please sponsor the program. You know what I mean? Shouts to Osmos. We'll stop making chicken on the rocks jokes. But like, yeah, I honestly have no idea like what is up with RJ at home. Yeah, so coming into this game, he was averaging, I think, 29.3 points per game at home. Tonight he goes for 37. This is 7 games now the Raptors have played at home for RJ Barrett. I mean, they played more in general, but obviously he was hurt to start the season. Yeah, he's averaging over 30 a game at home. I have a theory with RJ that I think is just a focus thing. Like, I feel like there's moments where he loses focus. Whether, I feel like it's probably most common on the defensive end, but there's some lapses in terms of like he makes some sloppy passes here or there. You saw that, for example, the last game against Miami. I thought what killed the Raptors ultimately was a lot of turnovers, and of course Miami getting a whole bunch of threes to drop. Yeah, I thought RJ tonight just looked really focused in the sense that, like, he was taking it strong to the basket, but he also made great reads as well. Saw the opportunities in transition, took those, was aggressive all night, came after these guys. But yeah, I don't know though. I actually don't know why he's been 10 points per game better at home as compared to on the road. I don't know. I'm not really sure. There is actually a funny thread out there someone made of Tyrese Halliburton, actually, where I think they were like, oh, Tyrese got a bad back. He's been sleeping in unfamiliar beds on hotels and stuff like that. I don't think I'll stoop to that low to be like, you know what, it's actually the hotel bed's fault or whatever, because these guys are literally staying at the best hotels that, America and Canada have to provide. But like, yeah, I mean, it'll be a good question. I think someone will ask that to RJ as well, but I think there really is like a focus element to it. And being at home and the energy there really does sort of lock you in a little bit. But of course, the goal should be to sort of translate this both from the road to from home to be on the road as well. But he's been excellent at home. Shouts to RJ Barrett. Next one from Tina. Did you notice that Darko played an entire lineup with B and M names? Barnes, Mitchell, Battle, Mogbo, and Boucher. No, I didn't know this, but okay, shouts to all the BMs out there. Just kidding. Yeah, I mean, honestly, this is probably a pretty frequent lineup that he plays. Mitchell coming off the bench, he's playing a lot. Battle being the backup shooter right now, obviously with Grady out, he's going to be playing a lot. Mogbo is your backup center, and then Boucher, who I actually got to salute Darko for continuing to go back to Boucher, because I thought the game against Miami in Miami, like Chris was like, if not number 1 or number 2 reasons why they lost that game. Like he just like made a lot of bad plays in that stretch. For Darko to then immediately turn back to Chris and just like give him the chance to play again was really huge. I think the longer we get with Darko, and this obviously season 2 with Darko as the head coach of the Raptors, like the more you're getting to understand sort of the process, but also how that process of what he does is linked directly to his character as a person. And there was that clip that was shown on the broadcast on Friday from Open Gym, where after the game, Darko gave the chain to Ochai Agbaji, and the speech he gave was like, you know what, last game, Ochai, I challenged you to be better, and you delivered. I want everyone here to know that I will never call you out. I will call you up. And then he gave the chain to Ochai. And I remember, I guess because it wasn't put out as like one of those Open Gym moments, I remember just like quoting that and just like slapping on the timeline. It actually got, a lot of shares. It seems like people are really interested in this quote. So I thought, okay, if people are really interested in this quote, I want to ask Darko before the game, what's the context behind it in terms of just like, what's your philosophy when it comes to sort of addressing players in the media? And his exact quote, and I tweeted this thing out too. So you can actually just go to my Twitter account for this. But part of what he said was, quote, "My job as a coach is to push them, to coach them, to teach them, to love them, and to show them all the areas that they can improve. Calling them up is when I see that they can give more. I'm going to talk to them and I'm going to keep them accountable." And then he talked more about sort of like, his relationship with Ochai, which is obviously he knows that. But basically, it's like he leads with love, he leads with support. And that's why it's not a call out, it's a call up, because he wants the players to know that he's coming from a place of like genuine concern and care, and he cares for these guys on and off the court. Like I guess that's the secret behind the Darko like coaching, whether it's this year or last year as well, is just getting that strong buy-in and showing them over and over again that like he's in their corner, he's willing to back them up. And obviously, like, it's probably strongest for Scotty, right? He's been incredibly effusive with his praise. His most viral moment is him killing the referees for not giving Scotty more foul calls, and also then throwing in a Scotty Barnes for All-Star, face of the league. The challenges, majority of them go to Scotty, although today it didn't go to Scotty. Today I actually went to Davion Mitchell for a play where he was backing up and he got elbowed in the face, and it was actually called a foul on Davion. That was a good challenge. It got reversed, Toronto ball. But like, that is sort of like the secret to what Darko does. Like, he's showing them over and over again that he just supports these guys. And it's like it's leading with positivity. I do think that, like, philosophically in the long run, is it going to be positivity that sort of like gets the best response out of guys? Or is it going to be sort of like, not negativity, because that's going to be the opposite, but sort of like that, like, stronger approach where you like, guys yell at them, whatever. Like, it depends. People respond to sort of different, stimulus, whatever. I think probably in general, people respond better to positivity. It's probably going to keep you in the job longer too. But I think more importantly, it's what works with this group. And Darko does have that buy-in from all these other guys. Like, all these guys on the roster are bought into what he's doing. And so if that's because of the positivity approach, then it's clearly working. And, more than anything else, like, it's cool for him to even share some of this stuff. He's actually very transparent and open with this. Of course, you can contrast this to like the previous coach. And I remember there was one segment, probably to start 2022-2023 season on the Raptor show, where it was after, I think, Malachi got called out and then Precious got called out. And I remember doing a whole segment where it was just like Nick Nurse callouts, the history of Nick Nurse callouts. And it was like, I think Pascal was on there, Norman Powell was on there, obviously Malachi, Chris. Obviously, Chris has been called out like multiple times. Precious, you know what I mean? Like, I think Scotty got called out. He actually got benched for one of those games too. I think that was that season. Actually, Scotty got benched his sophomore year, one game. Very, very strange. Certainly was not responding well to that. But yeah, like, the fact that we did a whole segment on this idea was just like, I think that's not the, like, because you can easily sort of argue both ways. You can say like, okay, a guy's being too soft on them or a guy's being too hard on them, whatever. Like, people literally have all these debates all the time and complaints all the time about this. I imagine this is what like most parenting conversations end up coming to, whether that's between two sets of parents, like a set of parents, or like multiple sets of parents comparing parenting styles. But like, I think Darko is pretty clear in where he stands with this. And again, I think it's like eliciting a good response from his guys in this current locker room, and that's the most important thing. So, but anyway, it's just cool to see just him even giving more context to the quote. I still think sometimes it's a little funny, because to me, maybe it's just I've been raised with like probably stronger like negative not to make this a therapy session, but like, there's I think that I've been motivated a lot sort of by negativity as well, but like or that sort of like harsher encouragement. But at the same time, it's just like it's a personal thing, you know what I mean? Like, I think people are all going to have their own triggers and all that kind of stuff. But shouts to Darko. And I thought it was a nice, thoughtful response. And it was a nice, thoughtful quote in the first place. So again, you can actually go find that on my Twitter account if you want to. Next one from the Gags. Okay. What do you foresee as Jacoby's future role, given the logjam at the position with Grady? he has an all-around game, whereas Grady has the potential to be an elite offensive player. First off, I don't think anyone was watching Grady last year and was like, yeah, next year he's going to be like showing you elite offensive player flashes, right? Like maybe you saw like the movement pattern, maybe you saw the release and you're like, okay, I'm going to project and guess. But like that's still a projection, I guess. And I think that, you got to give first and foremost Grady a ton of credit for how hard he's worked. You got to give the coaching staff a great credit for sort of like the way that they've been able to train him and the direction that they're pushing him and the methods that they're using to train him. And then, of course, on top of that, it's also the teammates are finding Grady and really recognizing how hot of a hot hand he had to start this season. But like, it's very hard to just like make a solid judgment off a player in his rookie year. With Jakobi, I'm seeing that like, number one, I want to give him that patience and grace. Number two, like there's a lot of good building blocks right there already that you're seeing. Like, I think that defensively, it's going to be real. Like he's active, he's pesky, he gets up for rebounds. Like those things are all pretty good from the perimeter position. He probably is a bit switchable, probably 1 through 3. Probably wouldn't switch him to 4s or 5s right now, but he does have some strength. He certainly is able to shrink the gap between him and his man. And just in general, I thought he's done a good job. Of course, like there's not a Scotty report out on him just yet. On the offensive end, catch and shoot wise, probably long term in terms of, well, I mean, who knows, right? But like doesn't seem to be like a knockdown shooter just yet, but he certainly has a mid-range game. And that's something where last year actually with Grady, he showcased a lot of his like mid-range shooting last year. So I thought maybe it was like an adjustment to the distances and stuff like that. Eventually, obviously, over the course of the season, Grady got himself pretty consistent shooting out of the corners. We'll see sort of which spots work well for Jakobi right now, and then sort of like revisit and expand out of those. But like, yeah, I mean, I think for Jakobi, he's able to get low. He's able to sort of like Grady mostly gets hard closeouts, and he takes 1 or 2 hard dribbles. Usually gets to a spot and either rises up to finish from the mid range, or he's like, jumping all the way and trying to finish at the basket. With Jakobi, I feel like he's got more of like he keeps his dribble alive a little bit longer. It's not necessarily he's going to take like 2 hard dribbles to get to a spot. Like he's more like we can cross over a little bit, or he might like, again, stake a guy in the pick and roll. Like those things are going to be really interested in me. And of course, like we're probably not going to see all of that this year with the Raptors, because once guys get healthier, his minutes will come down. But that's what's making me intrigued to watch him in the 905. Like he did play 2 games already, or more than 2 games actually with the 905. But like he did play 2 games with the 905 last weekend when the 905 were in town. And in those games, like he did have to do a lot more of his own personal playmaking and his own personal play creation. I'm curious to see that element as well. I guess my point is just sort of like, to me, Jakobi probably has a little bit more off the dribble, but we will have to see. Ultimately, like if Jakobi by year 2 is where Grady is in year 2, we would be laughing because we would have 2 really, really good shooting guards. But in any case, it's been exciting watching both of those guys. And I'm happy that the coaching staff has actually decided to give Jakobi that start. Not only to find more balance for the starting 5 with another shooter replacing a shooter, but also giving him a chance to sort of play in a context where, there's other playmakers around him so he can play off of those guys. Because I thought that was a big part of Grady's success as well. Next one from Adam. Why doesn't Mogbo play more? A lot more. Assists, elite defense, often changes the flow for good. Here and there, a giveaway, but then a takeaway. Yeah, I mean, the play he's describing with the giveaway was, I think he made a bad pass, got picked off, and then he hustled back and pressured another pass, I think, from Kevin Love. And by pressuring the pass, I think Kevin was throwing a pass, he pressured it, and I think it deflected off of Kevin going back out of bounds. So he immediately erased that mistake. So that was good, obviously, just by Mogbo, just in general, hustling back. I think he doesn't play more because Jakob's been so good to start the year. And I don't think you really play both of them at once, right? I think like it's very hard to play 2 non-shooters. And as much as Jakob's done a great job of screening, of, flipping his screens, of, just in general being like, kind of like an offensive line for RJ to get downhill, for Scotty to get downhill. Like that's all really good. The thing is, he's going to have to block 2 guys or maybe 3 guys if there's another non-shooter on the floor. And that's where I don't think Mogbo and him really can play much together right now. To be honest, Mogbo's playing quite a bit regardless, mostly because of the fact that Kelly Olynyk's been out to start the year. He continues to be out. Darko was asked about Kelly. I think there's still more reconditioning or whatever to be done. It's tough, him and Bruce, whatever. But like, yeah. But I do love the energy. I do love the fact that, especially against teams that zone, Mogbo is certainly going to be an option with his passing and cutting. He seems to read the game well. And then I just want him to sort of finish a little bit better. He's taking more corner threes now, which is good. He works on those, so I want him to try to shoot those. He's mostly working on like corner threes, or even just like at the break between when it's like obviously straight line on the three, and then it starts to curve into a semicircle, like that break area, that sort of corner. He's shooting it from there, and he's shooting from the actual deep corner. So like, those are the threes I want him to shoot right now. Catch and shoot, obviously. I want him to sort of finish a little bit better in the lane, right? Obviously, when he's able to dunk it with two hands, he's quite quick at getting up. But he's got that little short floater. Yeah, it's not my favorite shot right now, but whatever. But like, yeah, Mogbo has been intriguing, but I just do think that you can't play two non-shooters at once. For this team in particular. Next one from James Sorensen. When is Bruce Brown's coming back? And any news on IQ and Kelly? I don't think we got an IQ update from Darko today. I think, to be fair, the question was posed to him in terms of like, how are Bruce and Kelly doing? I think, yeah, Bruce is still in the midst of his reconditioning stint. I think they're working at getting him stronger as well. But in this instance of Bruce, he did get knee surgery, right? So like, it's different from like when Scottie got the orbital bone fracture. He could still run. He could still obviously, I mean, he was just, he didn't miss as much time as well. He also didn't go through surgery. So I think that like with Bruce, it seems like, I think the last update, the Raptors had a practice. They actually had some contact in that practice. So he was able to sort of go through some of that. But more than anything else, they want to get himself reconditioned. I think part of that too is just like a lot of these guys, you want to get them a practice in before they can, actually come back to action. So we'll see if the Raptors practice, for example, on Monday. Raptors will obviously playing again on Tuesday against the Pacers, but who knows if they practice. I mean, they also, a good sign is they let Bruce talk to media. Typically speaking, when a player's coming back from injury after a long layoff, during the injury, players they're not mandated to talk to reporters or be made available to reporters. But obviously, when they're closer to returning and they actually do, go ahead and do scrums and stuff like that actually is usually a good sign that the player is close. Of course, they went on this whole road trip for the past week, and he has not yet suited up. So whatever, but I do think that hopefully this week we could see Bruce. Kelly still feels like another week away. But again, like, yeah, that's also like, for me, I'm seeing Bruce at least get in warmups and stuff before games, running a couple of laps. Again, that's all reconditioning. Haven't seen that as much with Kelly yet. I think I saw him once come out to just take some light shooting, but we'll see the warm-up guy comes up with next. So yeah. Next one from Nesta at Hello and Welcome. Since most fans don't know who Dan Tolzman is, can you guys shout out him as the brains behind the Raptors draft strategy? The Rooks this year are a godsend after years past. Yeah, big shouts to Nesta. I mean, I think honestly, out of all programs, we might shout out Tolzman quite a bit. Shouts to DT. Me and Alex have certainly talked a little bit about Dan, but yeah, Dan is Raptors assistant GM. So the pecking order in terms of like, just whatever the org flow is Masai as the president of basketball operations. There's Bobby Webster as the general manager. And then there's Dan Tolzman, who is the assistant GM. Dan has actually been with the Raptors, I believe, since Masai took over. Back then, Bobby used to be assistant GM, Masai used to be GM. I guess they didn't necessarily have a president position. They also, at one point, had Orlando's guy as part of the Toronto front office. But regardless, like, yeah, Dan's been with the organization for quite a long time now. I think probably a decade. Occasionally you get to see Dan Tolzman speak. Usually around draft time, they'll make him available for one or two scrums when the Raptors are hosting draft workouts in like June. But yeah, he's usually in like he's got like glasses. He's a white guy. He's maybe a little bit shorter. He usually wears like plaid suits. He feels like he wears plaid suits probably more than Bobby and Masai do. And yeah, his job, primarily is to overlook the draft for the Raptors. Now, of course, like everybody's involved with the draft. Like, you be kidding. I don't think I'm breaking any news by saying Masai has done some scouting trips already this season. You know what I mean? And so like it's all hands on deck. Of course, they got scouts as well. I think Patrick Engelbert is probably the one that the Raptors, in terms of scouts for the Raptors, has been in the media spotlight or been interviewed and stuff like that. You see Patrick quite a bit too. But yeah, Dan does a really great job of sort of just organizing, I guess, draft prep. I mean, again, like these guys have such interconnected roles. I remember one time we had Bobby Webster on a live show, and I tried to sort of get him to explain the organizational run like structure and whether he was trying to be like obscure or whatever. But it feels like everyone's always collaborating on everything. But in any case, yeah, Dan does a great job, and he's obviously a very, very important part of the draft process. And yeah, I mean, they've done a good job this year bringing these guys. Jacoby, Mogbo, Shed. He's been up and down, but I think some of the ups have been pretty good. Jamison Battle, probably my favorite. That's like really good teams are able to discover these kind of guys. So I like the Heat, for example. They've discovered a lot of these Jamison Battle types, whether that was like Gabe Vincent in the past or Duncan Robinson. This year it felt like Pelle Larsson. Like, who is that? You know what I mean? But I thought he played really well for Miami. Like, good front offices are consistently able to identify talent that will fit their program, who are hard workers and maybe don't have huge profiles, and then bring them in and set them up for success, whether that's through the training that they have for them and also for the system that they have to sort of play with. But yeah, I mean, Dan deserves a lot of credit. And I also think that, like, I've been floating this theory as well out there as well, but if you look at it, the Raptors obviously over the last decade plus have been a really good drafting team, right? Like, we don't have to go through them, but like, Fred going undrafted and becoming what he did, and Pascal being 27th pick and becoming what he did, and OG, that's 3 max players right now in the NBA right now. Pascal making 40, Fred making 40, OG making 40. OG was the 23rd pick. You know what I mean? Like Norm, right? Who's, second on the Clippers in scoring. Like, he was the 42nd pick, something like that. Like, these guys, they've killed the draft. Like, they've done a great job. You know what I mean? The one period that they didn't do great in the draft also happened to coincide with COVID. And the more that we've looked back on this period, it's like, well, that COVID time really screwed up a lot of logistically. Number one, like, we're talking about like teenagers and like very young people being able to sort of like access gyms and impact gyms. It really restricted a lot of travel with the scouting networks, all that kind of stuff. It impacted schedules and, all the other events that go on, whether that's like pro days, whether that's like college pro days, all sorts of stuff that you typically go into like a regular draft schedule. It just screwed up a lot of logistics. We all went through COVID. We all know what happened there. The more time goes on, and I'm just like, yeah, how much of COVID just like screwed up like the regular draft prep? You know what I mean? And that's not to give them like passes or excuses or whatever. Obviously, some of that is also front office strategy to trade away picks, whatever. I don't want to get into this whole conversation, but I feel like there is like a huge, I guess, like logistics hurdle that sort of like threw a wrench into everything. So anyways, the Raptors have done a good job drafting, and you guys have done a great job sending in questions. We are going to hand out the 3 stars and various other awards and close it off for tonight's reaction podcast. Your first star is going to go to RJ Barrett. RJ, kidding me, 37 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. Shouts to Matty D for introducing the RJ Barrett, RJ kidding me, into his regular play calling. 15 of 20 from the field, 3 of 4 from 3, 30 minutes. Shouts to RJ Barrett, man. We just got to trick him. We just got to get him to like sniff that chicken on the rocks plate before every game. There actually is a very funny, especially if you're a Canadian soccer fan, you've seen this commercial quite a bit because I believe Osmo is like sponsors like the Canadian soccer team or whatever. But there's a commercial where like, I believe it's Kyle Laren, like their striker is just like lying on the pitch and they're like, oh my God, he's injured. And the medic runs on and he just like brings over chicken on the rocks and he stiffs it. He's like comes back to life. That's what it feels like with RJ. But I don't know, man. RJ at home, again, he's averaging over 30 at home and he's been killer. Today, he was great. Second star, I'm going to give that to Scotty. 23 points, 10 rebounds, 9 assists, 9 of 17 shooting, 2 of 5 from 3, 3 of 5 from the foul line. Did a little bit of everything. Had a really nice start, picked apart some zone, just your typical ho-hum average Scotty Barnes game that is somehow a triple-double. Like he's very good. And it's been a joy to see him back in the lineup. And then your third star, okay, it's Jakob Poeltl. I'm going to give it to Jakob. 17 points, 11 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, a block. Did a great job body up against Bam. Honestly, I wouldn't say he outplayed Bam, because Bam did have 20 rebounds and 7 assists and 13 points, but he stopped Bam in the important moments. And I want to give a huge shout out to Jakob, man. He did a great job. Gerald Henderson Award winner. I don't know, man. Maybe, I guess I already gave it to Rozier. I'll give it to Herro. Herro, he made 3 ridiculous threes. There's one where he pulled up on the Raptors logo, late shot clock, Chris Boucher with a hand fully in his face, and he somehow pulled it up to beat the shot clock buzzer. Then another one where he faded deep into the corner, late shot clock, like literally falling into his own bench, and he knocked down a 3. And then another one where he did that in the fourth quarter as well. Some just absolutely dagger threes from Tyler Herro. 31 points for him too. So he was obviously the main reason why Miami was able to, be in this game and even threaten at times to maybe flip it in the fourth quarter. And then your most important guy, which is brought to you by Greta Bar YYZ. Big shouts to Greta. If you're looking for the ultimate spot to watch the Raptors game and level up your night, you got to check out Greta on 590 King Street West. This place is next level. Think Mario Kart, Pop-A-Shot, all the classic arcade games that you love. But here's the thing, Greta isn't just about games. It's also about the pregame hype, the postgame celebrations, or catching every bucket, dunk, and buzzer beater with your crew. Great food, cold drinks, a vibe that screams fun. Whether you're repping the Raptors or just wanting to crush your friends in some games, Greta is where it's at. Pull up to Greta where the game doesn't stop even after the buzzer. Big shouts to Greta. The most important guy in this game. I don't give it to Jakob Poeltl. I know sometimes I use the MIG to shout out whoever randomly, whatever. But Jakob Poeltl, man. I mean, it's been really exciting watching him. Maybe the shout out is Dan Tolzman, but he's actually already got one of these. So give it to Jacoby for the 12 points. Big thanks to everyone for watching. Actually, one last message, I believe, is we do actually have, since this is Black Friday, we actually have a Black Friday sale going on. So you can visit nationgear.ca where you can get our exclusive Hello and Welcome merch. You can actually get, there's hats, there's tees, there's long sleeve shirts. Honestly, personally, I'm a big fan of the white ball cap that you see here on the stream. There's also a secret sweater that we're dropping right now for a limited time only, I believe. But it does have a very funny picture of Alex Wong on it as well. So go to nationgear.ca and browse our selection. So yeah, fun game. Raptors win. Thanks everyone for watching. Last reminder before we go, hit the like on the way out, please, especially if you've been watching the stream. Once again, it helps a lot for just the visibility of this podcast, and we're growing it quite a bit thanks to fans like you. So rate, review, subscribe as well on iTunes, on Spotify. You can leave some comments. I do see some of the Spotify comments, so just keep leaving them there. I'll have to figure out a way to actually respond to those, but I really appreciate it. And thanks everyone for watching. This has been the Hello and Welcome podcast presented by Betway.